questions, feel free to ask them any time. You don't have to wait until the end. If you have any question about what I'm talking right now, then I just answer that one. And another question, does anybody know about the Pandora and the GP2X already? Okay, well, not everyone, so I make a quick history about how the device came to be and what's our intention. Let's switch back to 2001. That's when I joined the scene, basically. It was a gaming handheld, the GP32, which was, well, it was meant as a commercial handheld from Korea. It was a competition to the Game Boy Advance, but, well, it's pretty much unknown and only a handful of games existed. What was special about that handheld was it was a lot better in terms of resolution and processor than the Game Boy Advance. And it used standard smart media cards, which was basically something like an SD card. Some might remember it from digital cameras. So this was the first portable device which used standard cards where you could put just some software on and run it from there. Of course, small company, not very secure device. It was hacked within a few months, and then it was opened up for homebrew by the community. Well, then came the successor, the first device, basically on the go, the first gaming device that ran Linux. This really was because the GP32 had a lot of sales only thanks to the homebrew community. So the company decided it's better to have an open device than to try to bring out their own commercial device again. So this was the first open source device which was not locked down. So no hacking, no bootloader replacement, it was just standard Linux running on it. Of course, on such a small device without any extra, it was just standard frame buffer and SDL. But it made porting games and emulators pretty easy. And up to date, it was the most successful open source handheld. It was really dedicated just for gaming. Then came a bit of a split in 2008. Created by former community members, one of them is me, and distributors of the GP2X, the Pandora was born. We had an idea. Basically, the original idea was we wanted a handheld which can emulate an Amiga, so we all have an Amiga for our pockets, we grew up with it. So we needed a keyboard, a touchscreen, and a high resolution display. And we presented that idea to the manufacturer of the GP2X, but they didn't want to do that. They decided to continue creating open source gaming devices without any keyboard or high resolution display. Well, they managed to release the Wiz and the Canoe. This is the Canoe on there. And I think that's it. They didn't sell a lot of them, so they closed down now, and that's the end of them. Whereas we then decided, why not try creating such a product ourselves? Which was a bit crazy, I have to admit, a lot crazy. And well, it worked partly. The basic idea was we create a device based on ideas of the community. So we asked them, what would your dream handheld be? And so they also decided to have a keyboard, a bigger screen, long battery time. And these ideas all went into the Pandora. And the core team consisted of 5 people. As mentioned, one of them was me. We were all scattered around the world. And it was the first open source handheld to run a Linux desktop with standard libraries. So this time we had a standard X server on there, so you could just configure and compile, and then basically the game or the program was ported. Which means still, the Pandora is still the device I use today. I've got LibreOffice, GIMP, Inkscape, and all other tools, Mail on there, Firefox. It's getting a bit slow these days because the processor is from 2008. But of course, that was a major success to have a small handheld device with a full desktop. Well, the problem was we had some production issues, partly due to inexperience, but also partly to having not the best companies or not chosen the best companies, and those led to huge delays. I don't think I need to explain the details about the delays. We planned to release the device end of 2008, and in reality it happened in 2010. The project nearly died because one of the core members basically gave up, and that was the one who was organizing the full production and was facing all these issues. And it was resurrected by others in the community, and I was basically the one who, well, who managed to move the production over to Germany, get investors, and then continued the production up to this day. And the production is running stable since 2011. So some of you might remember it was nearly impossible to get a Pandora. You had waiting times for a month. Now you can buy it from stock. Not long anymore, because end of life is 2014. The last production run is finished. We've got about, I think, 100, 150 boards left. Once those are sold, the Pandora will no longer be available. Well, which means we need to move to the next device. Just quick overview of the technical details of the Pandora. It uses an OMEP 3 Cortex A8, the same the GTA 04 is using. Has Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 512 megabyte internal LAN, which was huge back then and is nothing today. With 512 megabyte RAM as well. 4.3-inch touchscreen with 800 x 480. Again, in 2008, this was a high resolution, and these days everyone starts with UHD and 4K, and on a small screen it doesn't make sense, but okay. We have two SDXC card slots, so you can put up 2 times 256 gigabyte at the moment, so you can put 512 gigabyte storage into the device, which is okay, I think. Mini USB port, USB host port for connecting standard devices. You can, for example, connect the DVB-T stick, watch TV, connect a MIDI interface and use it as a synthesizer. There are so many use cases for the Pandora. It was, well, I was amazed what people did with that thing. We have an analog TV out, analog because back then HDMI wasn't that popular, and a serial out. Of course, keyboard gaming controls and a huge replaceable battery, which is important as well. I hate those devices where the battery is built in, but you can replace it and have more than 10 hours usage time. So that was pretty much a neat device. Main users, well, a lot of people at the beginning got it for playing classic emulators. All the consoles work up to PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Amiga, even DOS games. You can even run Windows games if you want to. Of course, then play native Linux games and ports and remakes. And well, that was at the beginning mostly because most of the community members came from the GP2X, though they were all gamers. So the main purpose at the beginning was gaming, but these days there are also a lot of people who use it as a general purpose mini PC for internet administration, office suite, music production, whatever. When I go to holidays, I don't take my netbook with me. I've got my Pandora and that's it. I play some games at the plane ride, then at the hotel I switch on my Wi-Fi, download my emails, reply them at the beach, send them back, and in the evening I connect it to the TV, play some games or watch a movie. So why do I need a netbook anymore? And if you're going on a train ride, it's easier if you need some quick typing, if you type like that, then have a huge netbook where you need a table to use it confidently. Then some people develop and compile directly on the system, which is neat as well. I know quite a few members are developers who have train rides every day, and in the morning and in the evening they continue to code their own game or compile something. Someone went on to holidays and came back with a fresh build of Firefox. Why not? And well, the device is both suited for normal users who have no Linux experience. We made the system so it's usable for everyone, similar like Android. Basically, if you are smart enough to put an SD card into the system and switch it on, then you can use it. So it's not like you have to, like most of the development boards, where you have to basically download the full distribution, unpack the rootfs or anything like that. The Pandora is fully pre-installed, which means it's not just for the hackers, but also for the casual users and gamers. We also made an easy package manager, which will also be used with the next device. Well, a large community has developed around it. We've got over 7,000 units delivered. And well, the community consists of all kinds of different members. We've got developers, musicians, users, gamers, administrators, everything, hackers. So it's a pretty mixed community, I have to say, but that's a lot of the fun, I have to admit. So what can be improved? Of course, the NAND is small these days. We needed to use a special Linux distribution, Open Embedded, which is suited for small devices. But that means also a lot of work to keep it up to date. Our operating system still is based on Open Embedded from 2008 because switching to a next, we tried switching to a newer, more recent Open Embedded, but every few days or weeks it sometimes kills itself, and if we try to update the packages, has anybody worked with Open Embedded here? You know how easy it can be to break packages. You just update your Git tree and then it doesn't compile anymore, yay. That's one of the problems we had with the Pandora, but that will be different on the Pyra. The CPU today is a bit slow. Firefox with modern website crawls, and even when using something like GIMP, it is usable, but it doesn't make any fun anymore. There's not enough RAM for proper desktop usage. It works if I just run Firefox, but if I try to run Firefox and ClassMail and GIMP and all at the same time in the background, then 512 megabyte memory is full pretty fast. We have no HDMI port yet. The keyboard can be seen in the dark because there's no backlight for it. The screen resolution is less than 800 × 600, which is an issue with standard desktop applications, because on Linux most desktop applications are based on 800 × 600. So if you open the KDE settings dialog, for example, you always need to move it up and down to see the full dialog, which is also a bit annoying, but it is usable, but it can be improved. The case quality and the nut quality was a bit problematic because it was made in China by the cheapest company we could find. So this can be improved as well. And we've got some closed source drivers for Wi-Fi for the SGX, and that's also a bit annoying. So this can be improved from the Pandora, and based on that, and the ideas that are great, we worked on the Pyra. Great, of course, the size, it's pocketable, I can put it in my pocket, which is not possible with any netbook. Combination of keyboard and gaming controls, so gaming controls can not only be used for gaming. If you, for example, use a text editor and have a D-pad to move the cursor keys around and page up, page down, home, end, this is pretty fast and very, very comfortable as well. It's also great to have a standard Linux desktop system, so you can easily port games and programs. I still like the analog volume wheel. I hate those buttons where you have to, well, sometimes if your mobile phone has a high CPU usage, they don't even react if you try to turn the volume up or down. This is even more annoying. Standard I/O ports, of course, connect your USB stick or whatever. The open and flexible, that is something very important for me. I hate it how when you get a new phone, you need to register to be able to download software or to open the boot manager to put your own operating system on it. So this will not be the case in the Pandora or in the Pyra. It's open, it's free, it's flexible, no registration needed anywhere. You can just download what you want and put it on there, like on a normal PC. What's also nice is the P&D system, which is a system we created especially for the Pandora. Basically, a P&D is a mountable image where the games are in and some XML data. You just put them on the SD card and then the system will find and recognize the program and show it on the desktop. So as we only have 512 megabyte storage on the system, of course, it's you usually use the SD card for storing your stuff. But we couldn't use the standard package manager because with the standard package manager, it expects that the files are always there. So what happens if you just remove the SD card or the SD card breaks, then you've got a messed up system. So we made a system where you can just remove the SD card, put it into a different device, and then all your programs and settings will automatically appear on the different device. So the system will always work even if your SD card is broken and only the programs are lost then. It's also easy to handle them, both directly on the system or from any PC. All you need to do is download the P&D, copy it on the SD card, and that's it. Put the SD card in and it appears. We've got a P&D manager for that, which is similar to the App Store from Android, where you can just see screenshots, descriptions, and then decide to download and install it. But if you don't like that, just use your PC, download, put it on the SD card, and you're finished. Well, and what's also important is that it's a standard hardware. So the software has been optimized to run perfectly on the system. This is a huge problem with Android, in my opinion. If I tried some Android phones which have a Cortex A9 processor, so they should be a lot faster than the Pandora. But surprisingly, a lot of the programs, emulators, and games run slower than on the Pandora, which simply is because there are so many different Android devices out there. It's not optimized on the hardware. Even, well, most of the developers just slap on the standard Android and that's it. Since we are having one hardware kit, basically, similar like the PSP or the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, all the programs can be optimized to run on that system. So it feels a lot faster than it actually is. Well, finally, let's go to the Pyra. The internal storage will be upgraded. We will have 8, 16, or 32 gigabyte eMMC. That's not decided yet because storage prices change every few months, basically, and we will see what will be available when the system is really finished. If, of course, the 32 gigabyte is as cheap as an 8 gigabyte today, then we will use that one. But additionally, we will have an internal micro SD card, which we can put below the battery. I will give this around and later you can take a look. So we've got the possibility to boot from an internal micro SD card or from the internal storage. The CPU will be upgraded to the OMEP 5 Cortex A15, which should be about 8 times as fast. I've made a video a few days ago with web browsing, and I think I ran Firefox in Full HD with about 20 tabs, and it didn't slow down. And well, I think that's really a beast, the processor. Everything I try works really fast. I'm not sure if we can set it up so I can show you something. Well, I've got HDMI, so we could connect it to the screen later, but otherwise just check the videos, or you can also visit me in Ingolstadt if you want to see the speed of that thing. The RAM will be upgraded to 2 gigabytes, which should be enough for an embedded system. Even Firefox with 20 tabs didn't need more than, I think, 800 megabytes. So still 1.2 gigabyte basically free. Linux itself doesn't need much because we're not, unlike Android, we're not running tons of tasks, we're just running a standard desktop. And that's it, that doesn't need much space. Then we will have a standard HDMI port, which is also great because on HDMI you've got full HD output. We've also got 2 USB ports. So for example, you could connect mouse and TV and HDMI to your screen. There you go, you've got a PC. That's it. So it's not only usable on the go, you can also use it as a desktop PC, which is pretty neat as well. Yes?
If you thought about a display port instead of HDMI.
We thought about that, but I think DisplayPort doesn't allow audio, and DisplayPort is not that common for the normal user. I know if you got a flat screen TV at home, I don't know any TV that has a DisplayPort, but they all have HDMI. So this is just, personally, I like DisplayPort as well, but the majority uses HDMI. So that's basically the reason we've chosen to use HDMI. But it would be a neat system as well, but we don't have that much space on the PC.
The SoC support directly. I thought it only supports HDMI directly.
The OMEP 5 directly has HDMI only.
Yeah.
So we would need an adapter from HDMI to.
Would be possible,
Yeah.
but majority uses HDMI, and needing an adapter doesn't make that much sense. Yes?
Why OMEP 5 and Cortex A15? Both are dead horses.
No.
Why?
What's that about the Cortex A15?
Nobody uses it anymore. After
A15?
Yes. It's in the NVIDIA, it got too hot, and for several devices it cancelled, and they much very speed development. They going to I guess A57.
Not really. All the big little for CPUs, for example, are also A15. That's an A15 and an A7. That's a mixture.
Usually the next generation will not be A15, will be a 57.
Let's say 64-bit generation, yes.
53 maybe. 53 is still, yeah, it's okay, but
not available.
The next generation is not yet available.
If you develop something, you need to have a generation that's available.
And OMAP, because TI abandoned the, let's say, mobile.
Well, the OMAP you're using is not the mobile one, but the automotive one, and the automotive sector has not been abandoned by TI.
Okay.
They only moved back from the mobile market into the automotive market. So
it's automotive.
Yeah, this is the automotive version. But the only difference, I think, it's a bit bigger, but it doesn't even use more power. So it's basically the same as the mobile version that was planned, just a tad bigger.
Okay.
And it has external memory and not package on package. But we have the space for that, so that's not a big deal. Well, the problem is with processors from NVIDIA, Qualcomm, or anything, it's impossible to get them.
Yeah.
I met with Samsung about the Exynos. I'm glad now that I didn't use it because the Exynos had so many bugs and was overheating, the first one. And Samsung Germany was, the guys were pretty nice, and they wanted that they tried to help me to get the CPU because they really liked it, but Samsung Korea said, nope, not with that amount. I had a chat with NVIDIA, who basically said to me that if I want to use their SoC, I have to go to a company that are certified designers from NVIDIA and certified producers from NVIDIA. So I could not have the development myself. I had to use a company from NVIDIA to develop the device and a company that is NVIDIA approved to produce the device. And I'm pretty sure with those numbers we're talking about, they would have said, make a tablet instead, or something like that. That's a problem with those huge Qualcomm. Well, they replied at first, and they contacted me to use the CPU, but then after a few talks, they just didn't reply anymore. So no idea what's going on there. I would have loved to use a Freescale because it's easily available, but Freescale decided to skip the A15 and only has the A9 available, and that wouldn't be a new device. The A9 is a bit faster than the Pandora, but I don't think that would be justified these days.
It would be quad core.
That doesn't make a lot of difference. It would still be slower than the A15 with dual core.
Yes. Is it dual core?
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, the only one we could get was the Cortex A15. I had a chat with AMD because they're releasing a new processor next year, a 64-bit, and I've yet I got the contact details, but I haven't contacted them after the exhibition now. But that might be a processor we could use in the future, because that's something I will come to later as well. The CPU can be replaced by the user. So we're not fixed on anything, but right now it's a Cortex A15 because it was available. We already used the OMAP 5, so we know the OMAP, so we knew a bit about how the OMAP series works, which makes layouting easier. And we had good contacts with TI already. And all the others, unless you buy 1 million of the processors, they won't talk to you. That's always the problem with small projects, honestly. Was the same with the display. Trying to get a display in such small numbers that's higher resolution than 800 times 480 is also no easy task, but we got that as well. Well, back to the list. We got a backlit keyboard this time, so you can also see in the dark. Of course, it's can be adjusted by the software. As it's Linux, it's just available in user space, so you could use the keyboard also for something different, for notification, for playing games if you want a flashy keyboard like that. So it's up to the user what to do. The screen will be a 5-inch 1280 x 720 LCD touchscreen. So here's a small printed 3D case that's a bit older. So you can see we moved basically the speakers down here, and then we got more space for the display. So that's 5-inch now instead of 4.3 inches. At first we tried to use a full HD display. But full HD slows the system down a lot, of course. It has 4 times as much pixels to render, and you don't see a difference. Honestly, if you put a Linux desktop on full HD and 720p on 5-inch, show it to different people and try, can you see the difference? They don't see it. So it doesn't make any sense using a full HD display in the device. But of course, with HDMI, you've got full HD, so if you connect a big screen and monitor to it, then it works a lot better. We also had other issues with full HD. For example, the icons and the start menu buttons, they were all too small, so we would have to change it for the desktop as well. The DPI settings are a nice idea, but not all programs accept the DPI settings. So for example, GIMP, we needed to create a new theme for GIMP to make it usable and stuff like that. So it's a lot better using for a smaller screen and lower resolution. It's faster, it's easier to handle, and you don't see a difference as a normal user. The knobs will be better. The case is redesigned and produced in Europe, this time in Greece. So we won't have to talk with any Chinese companies again. As far as I've found out, Chinese companies can do a good work, but only if you really are there and are watching what they are doing. Otherwise, you can be lucky or you can be unlucky. Last time we were unlucky, so we decided to not do that challenge again. We've got more standard ports, a USB 2.0 port again, a big one, a micro USB 3 OTG, a micro USB debug port. So basically, if you connect a standard micro USB cable to the debug port into your PC, it will show up as serial device, and then you can just do some kernel debugging if you like. So no need for any special cable, it's already included on the PC, on the board. The micro USB debug port will also be the charging port, because most users won't need it, but they might want to charge and use USB 3 at the same time, the small one. So we've got it as charging port as well. And what's not yet on this PCB, but I think on the sample we've got here, yes. That's a USB 2.0 eSATA combo port. So if you've got an eSATA hard disk you want to connect, you can do that. So this will really be a miniature PC in your pocket. Another thing we learned is we will be working with European companies mostly to ensure quality and faster turnaround times in development and production. What really caused a lot of delays in the Pandora was that with Chinese companies, if you want something fixed, then you can wait for 3 months and then you get the fixed version back, even if it's just a small thing. And that, I think with the Pandora case, it took about 2 years until we got the case, simply because all changes took a really, really long turnaround time. So this is a lot faster when working with European companies. Plus, you can visit them in case there are any problems. But we still got some closed source drivers, at least the SGX. But that's basically the case with most other SoCs as well. I don't know any SoC which really has a fully open 3D driver, except for Intel with the x86, but then we would have to create our own BIOS and everything like that, which is just impossible. I'm hoping for AMD next year. That would be a nice successor to the OMEP 5, because they use their standard Radeon hardware, and we have an open source driver for that already. So the basic idea: keeping what's good, improve what can be improved, and of course learn from the past and don't try to repeat the issues you already had. This just well, I can give the case around later then as well. Just the difference again, speakers move down, screen bigger, some buttons more here, and well, that's basically everything. Well, one key will grow more, so we actually can have more keys available, which is also pretty useful. Yes?
I don't see the LEDs below the display.
These?
Yep.
There won't be any LEDs there. We've got 2 here, which are RGB, so you can use different colors for any notifications. And if you've got the device closed, the logo in the back will also have 2 RGB LEDs, so you can use it for notification as well.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, there should be enough. And you could use the keyboard as LED, but, in case you want that. So as operating system, we switched to a standard Debian with optimized packages. So right now I'm running, just the root file system from Debian ARM. We included some of our own packages like FB Turbo to have a fast X server, and power saving stuff like that will also be implemented, but we will stay as vanilla as possible so we don't have too much work and just can use a standard Debian as repository. Of course, we will also do user-friendly default setup. If anybody set up a Debian root file system, it does nothing when you boot it. You won't have a user or anything. And this is not really user-friendly, but we learned that from the Pandora, and we will also use a lot of the ideas and from the Pandora to include that as well. So it will be similar, easy to set up as modern smartphones. Switch it on, enter a name, enter your username, set some of your favorite default settings, and that's it. We will also include useful Pandora developments, such as standard. I don't know if anybody heard of GLShim already. GLShim is from a well-respected member in the Pandora community, and basically it's a wrapper, an OpenGL wrapper for OpenGL. This will be included as default on the operating system. So if you've got an OpenGL program, you don't need to port it to OpenGL. You can just do your configure and make, and it will just use the wrapper. So basically, we've got OpenGL available on the device as well. We will provide our own repository with Pyra optimized specialized stuff on top of the standard Debian repository. This is already set up. We already got the build server, we got a few packages. Of course, all of them are open. You can just check the Git and take a look at them. And we also have the repository working already. So right now we are already working on the software, on the operating system, while we are also still working with the hardware.
Which are you using? Is it the one Nikolaus talked about, or?
I don't know which one you talked about, the 318?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a different compile, not his compilation of the 318, but I've got it running as well. Yes?
Can the Pandora used like a phone?
The Pyra? Yes.
Pyra.
Yes. We will have a 3G, 4G model for it, so you've got mobile internet, but you can also use it as a phone, which is a bit funny if you use it as a normal phone. You've got speaker here and a microphone here, so you could use it like that. It looks a bit funny, but not as bad as with the Nintendo N-Gage. But of course, with a Bluetooth headset or a normal headset, or just putting it in front of you and use it to speak, that would be possible, if you don't want to look funny. But yes, it should be possible. We have to, of course, code the software for the telephone, but thanks to Nikolaus with the GTA04, there should be software available for that. So basically, we also only need to port it, and then you can use it as a phone.
Is the modem included, or?
Yes, on special versions. You can buy it with or without. And you will then have the SIM card just open, just below the battery, so that nobody can accidentally steal your SIM card. This is on this device. This is an older prototype, which only has the SIM card slot here, but in reality it's a SIM card MMC card combination, a micro SD card combination. So this is where you also put the internal micro SD card later on. Well, the goal is not to create a custom distribution, because then you would always need a huge manpower, a lot of manpower to keep it up to date. So we stick to main Debian as close as possible and offer improvement on top, which is, I think, a pretty good way for that. Well, the case, designed and manufactured in Greece, is set based on the Pandora case and the community in my ideas. So that's how the case came to be. The current status of the case is the basic design is finished, well, as you can see with the printed 3D case. Some areas are being tweaked, like the shoulder buttons. We tried them like that, but that didn't work out correctly. This was a user idea to make them like that, and we also had another idea to improve them. So this is currently being incorporated, and I hope to get a new case design in December, so I can print it out and test the two different shoulder button designs. The keymat is also currently being designed. It will be a transparent silicon keymat, where the keys that are, the labels are transparent as well, so that the light will shine through them. This is not accurate, so ignore where the keys are. This is not the layout. We haven't decided about that yet. It's just a dummy, so it would show that. And also there will be a bit of the transparent keymat around every key, so it will glow around the key as well. But it will be similar like that. This was just an idea. About the PCB, we learned from that as well with the Pandora. We've got 3 PCB. I've got 2 here. This is the main PCB, and only the standard parts are on there. And the most important thing is on that small PCB, which will be the CPU and the RAM. So this means this has a lot of improvements. First, it's cheaper to produce, even if it's 2 PCBs. But this will be an 8 or 10 layer one. This can be a simple 4 or 6 layer, 4 layer, a simple 4 layer one. So it's cheaper to produce. And if something fails on the production, you don't have to throw away the full board. If the CPU, for example, doesn't work, you can keep that part and just use a new CPU board. So it's you have a lower failure rate, you've got a cheaper production, and, which is also great, if we decide to release a new version in the future, for example, if we've got in 2, 3, or 4 years a new processor PCB, you can probably buy it for around 100 to 150 euro, whatever, and replace it in your device. So if you got the device, you don't need to rebuy it every few years, unlike smartphones where you have, I think people or the companies are trying to tell you you have to buy a smartphone every year basically right now. And we are trying to keep the same device and make it upgradable.
So it's green IT, isn't it?
Well, basically, yes.
PCB screen.
PCB, brownish. Well, the case, the printed case screen. Well, yeah, that was one of the ideas. I hate how you have to buy a smartphone every few years, and basically the only thing that really needs to be changed is the processor. If the keyboard is fine and the controls are fine, the ports are fine, why throw away the full device? So that's one of the ideas. The third PCB will be the display PCB. So we've got a small cable going from here into the display on top. And it might be that the display is not available anymore in a few years, which is pretty much common for displays. So the full display connector has its own PCB. And if we have to use a new display in the future, then we don't need to change anything on the lower part, on the CPU board or on the main board. We only need to change the display board as well. And that's it. So we're trying to make it as future-proof as possible. And of course, all the standards, well, the schematics and everything will be released for free as well, for non-commercial use. And if a company decides the pinhouse is available, that they want to create a development board with the same CPU board as well, then they can do that, which means in the future we might have different CPU boards available, and you can choose which one you want. So this is one of the advantages we've got with the new PCB. Well, the current status is probably what Nikolaus can tell you better because he's the designer. The main board layout is, I think, mostly finished, except for some smaller tweaks, but everything working. The LCD driver PCB layout should be finished, and the CPU PCB layout is currently being done, which is a lot of work, a lot of lines, pretty much fun. And I tried the whip to keep him go faster, but he didn't react to that. Yeah, we had that about the not green idea, but that was fair development. Yeah. That's well, what's also important is the development happens in the public, which is also pretty uncommon for these devices. If you buy a smartphone, you know nothing about the development. If you're just interested what happens, how we do it, how we, what problems we face, what the solution is, or just want to discuss about it and try to help us with the solution, then you can, of course, visit the website, which has a blog with all the developments. Follow me on Twitter if you want just small tweets about that, or you can discuss about that on the forums. So these are the most important websites. Most questions say it's availability, ordering, price. That's what I hear a lot. Pre-orders won't start before everything is ready for mass production. Means a working prototype with phase. If anybody followed the disaster the Pandora had with the pre-orders, where it took more than 2 years to get it finished, simply because we didn't have a finished prototype, only a working PCB back then you know why I'm choosing this way. I don't want any pre-orders with money or payments before I'm really sure the device is ready for mass production. It's as easy as that. So the price is not fixed yet. We don't have all the prices for the components right now, and also as mentioned, the prices might change until they are available, but I guess it's about 500 euro. So 500 euro one time basically for the device, and future upgrades of course will be cheaper with the CPU. The first batch will be exclusively available for my own shop. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but pretty much. Distributors will be set up worldwide after that. We need at least 1,000 pre-orders. And as a lot of people are asking me if I'm using Kickstarter, maybe, I'm not sure yet. Kickstarter wants 10% of the cash, but it's also great marketing to use. But I think I'm trying first to sell the units as a pre-order, and if that's not enough, then I can move to Kickstarter as well. Yes?
You told that there will be a 3G, 4G Pyra available. What's the difference in price possibly?
Well, from the production-wise, I think it's about 80 euro more, 80 to 90 euro. But I'm currently in discussion with a major phone company, and it might be possible that we might be able to get a bit of a sponsored version. So if you get it with a contract, you get it for free basically. It costs the same as a non-4G version, but you've got a contract for 2 years. But then it might even be possible that I can give you free internet for a few months if you buy it. So we're discussing about what we can do, but that's not yet fixed, so I can't tell too much about it. But it might even be possible that if you take the 4G version, you get free internet. That's also a version. So you pay 100 euro more, but get free internet for 2 years, and that's it. So that would be a good price as well. Good. If you want to availably, well, hopefully 2015. If not, I'm going to take the whip again. But I'm pretty sure. So we are really trying to get a prototype out in December. So this is nearly impossible, but we're still trying. But if not, then it's probably in January. So, and if there are not too many bugs, then we are almost ready for the mass production. Well, if there are more questions, of course, you can still ask them. I can also give around the case for it. Yeah, you can give it around. Just a small mock-up, basically, not working, and the PCB as well. And all kinds of support, ideas, donation, development, sharing, everything is welcome, of course, as with any open source project. Problem with open source hardware is always it costs a lot of money and you don't get support from huge companies because the market is just too small. But we're still trying to get that. And well, if you want, if you buy something from my shop, which is Dragonbox.de, of course, it's also the money that will be used to produce the Pyra. So if you are in need of any open source hundreds or retro stuff and don't want to donate but get something back from them, you can also share the ideas. Well, that's it. If you got any more questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, thanks for listening.
Der erste Fehler.
Ja, das gehört immer dazu.